Hi, Scott. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, always good to get some time with you, Chris John.
Can you share the audience what your role is at Microsoft and such?
Yeah, so I'm the vice president of product for Windows Cloud. Windows Cloud is a combination of all of our virtualization solutions. So Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, and even Remote Desktop Services.
Yeah, I've been a great member of your team, and it's a great journey so far. We're going to talk about that as well, like how it all started, and maybe even before that. So, fun fact, I learned from you that you have been doing home automation as well in the past, right? Can you tell some more there?
Yeah, I actually started my career right out of college doing home automation. I was very fortunate, had an opportunity to be the IT admin for one of our co-founders of Microsoft, Paul Allen, while I was in college still, and took on a lot of projects doing high-end home automation for him, his homes and his yachts and his planes, and then saw that opportunity as maybe something I could do and beyond just working for Paul, and I opened my own company doing home automation. And it was a pretty exciting time in my life. I really enjoyed tinkering, and there's a lot of interesting technologies that play in home automation space that carry forward into a lot of the products that we build here at Microsoft.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool story, and the other part is, of course, Paul Allen. It's another cool story, and you worked in the Netherlands as well, right?
Yeah, one of the projects I mentioned was a yacht that he had built at the Scheepsbouw in Alsmeer, just outside of Holland. And I spent about 2 years traveling back and forth there, putting all the technology in that yacht. That was a pretty exciting time in my career for sure.
Yeah, well, I bet. One of the other moves afterwards was moving to Microsoft, right? Like, how did that happen? Like, how did you start? What was your first role, for example?
Yeah, so I worked in a home automation company out of Dallas, Texas, and my wife and I had our first son, and all of our family was here in Seattle. So we were looking to move back to Seattle, and Microsoft was the one and only company that I really saw as the next step in my career. And so fortunately, I was offered a position at Microsoft. I was actually offered a couple positions. One was a business development for Universal Plug and Play, sort of a home automation related technology. The other was a program manager in the UP&P technology space. And then the third was a technical evangelist role for home networking and home automation. The technical evangelist one kind of interested me because I wanted to be better at public speaking. I was terrible at it. Not that I'm good today, but it takes practice. It's a journey, right? You're never at your ultimate goal of public speaking, but I thought that would give me a lot of opportunity to work with partners and to get out there and talk with the community, and I really enjoy that aspect of my career.
Yeah, I think that kind of like is a red wire through the rest of your career as well, right? Because you still do that a lot, and you pay attention to our community that we both lead kind of together. So
Yeah, it's interesting, both, internal comms, right? Being able to be in front of a large group of people or very senior people within the company, being able to talk to customers on a one-on-one or one-to-many basis. All this is about communication and the evangelist role. That's a real focus, right? Being able to tell a story, tell a compelling story, right? To be able to influence partners and customers and technologists, to build technology together. And I think you see that playing out in both Azure Virtual Desktop and Windows 365. The partner aspect of those has been a huge part of it. And it really comes from the origins of myself and other members of the team that help, build these products, is that partner side of it.
I love that. I love that story. And moving from that part into like the history of Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows 365, like how did that all start? Like you joined RDS like back in 2012, I believe, or somewhere around.
Around there, it's kind of like 12, 13 years since I came over into the enterprise space for virtualization. Prior to that, I was working on an incubation project to build a game streaming service. And my career kind of navigated around at Microsoft into different areas. I led the networking team at Microsoft. I led the multimedia team at Microsoft. And then I found myself over in Xbox working on second screen remoting technologies, which led to me working in an incubation team building game streaming services. And it was a 2-year project. When that project shut down, I was looking for opportunities within the company, and there was a GPM role available over in the remote desktop services team. I thought, wow, what a great amalgamation of all the technologies I've worked on, that home automation space, right? So networking, media, second screen remoting, it like had all the aspects of everything that I've done in my entire career at Microsoft. And, I found the home once I really got into it and worked on the technology. I joined the team maybe about 5, 6 months before we shipped Azure Remote App. For those historians out there, remember that product. It was interesting to watch the team, transforming the traditional on-prem business of remote desktop services into a cloud service offering while Azure was still pretty nascent, right? We didn't even have ARM APIs yet. Everything was REST APIs. It was, it was a very compelling scenario being built on a platform that hadn't fully matured to support a solution like that at the time.
Yeah, I think that was a time when Azure started. We had the older Azure portal and cloud services, IaaS and SaaS was kind of starting at the time. So everybody in Microsoft was kind of searching for help. Is our product moving to the cloud, right? Like, how are we modernizing our infrastructure, our service that is more based on server versus like Azure? And I think that's a nice segue maybe into like Azure Remote App and then RDMI and that eventually Windows Virtual Desktop and Azure Virtual Desktop, right?
Yeah, I think that story's been well told, but yeah, that we certainly had this concept of something like Azure Remote App, but something that really leaned into the multi-tenant nature that our customers were asking for. Like, we saw a lot of people taking remote desktop services, for instance, and trying to set up a single deployment and host multiple tenants across it. Not something we recommend, and some of you may be watching this, maybe have done this in the past using OUs, to kind of separate different tenants out, not really the right security boundary. But we saw a lot of people doing that, and we saw the demand for that growing. And we started off with the idea that we build a set of app services called Remote Desktop Modern Infrastructure that a customer could deploy into their own environment. So a set of app services that they managed. As we were talking to customers about it, and we even announced it at Ignite, we were getting very strong feedback that though that would be a very interesting solution, a multi-tenant solution that didn't require them to manage even those app service type roles was going to be something that would resonate more with customers. So we made the pivot from RDMI to Azure Virtual Desktop. We launched that in September 2019, as you know, and obviously, just a few short months after that, COVID, kind of hit the world. And many organizations were looking for a solution like this to, help them support hybrid work scenarios. And it became a wildly popular offering because many of our customers already have all the entitlements for it. And when you're looking for something you can just get up and running quick, AVD was a really great solution for customers.
Yeah, I remember like back in 2017, 16, when like the whole RDMI transition to like AVD Windows Virtual Desktop happened. It really was an evolution from a project that started very small in Microsoft. It was more as like an incubation project, right? And then it evolved to an actual product. Can you tell some more there?
Well, when we shut down Azure Remote App, there was a bit of a reorg that we did around that. And so many of the folks that were involved in that moved over to Intune. And frankly, it was a lot of great talent that went there and really advanced that product quite a bit over the years. And then there was a small team that stayed to keep the lights on in the remote desktop business and remote desktop services. But we were a pretty small team. Frankly, it's probably the best thing could have happened to us because that small team was kind of the people that were very passionate about this space, still saw some opportunities. And being a small team, we were able to work quickly, kind of incubate some ideas and came up with this idea of remote desktop modern infrastructure. Many of those members of that early team are still on the team today. There was some of the folks that some folks have retired and other folks moved on, but a lot of the core people are still here today. We're over 10 times the size of that early team that built the first version of Azure Virtual Desktop. And as our business has really grown and we've added these other technologies like Windows 365 into our Windows Cloud offering.
Yeah, no, that's great. And one of the other examples, I think at a time that the product was really in a starting phase, right? And then at some point, you were like looking for, hey, how can we solve this like profile management solution? And then eventually you knocked on the door of Logix, right?
So I think that's where we first got to hear each other, right?
That's where we kind of got connected, and I got introduced with the rest of the team members that also are still around in Microsoft.
Yep. One of the goals we had with Azure Virtual Desktop was to mimic the experience that people had on a regular Windows laptop. Yeah, right. Meaning not having a server operating system skin to look like a client operating system, but truly offering a Windows client offering that also had all the benefits of server in terms of its multi-user capability and ability to support large amounts of RAM. And what we ended up building was what we now call Windows Client Multi-User or Windows Enterprise Multi-User, which is a bit of a interesting, version of Windows where it's got the full Windows client experience on the top half of the shell. It's all Windows Client. the bottom half is all server. So it's got all those optimizations of server in terms of performance, supporting large memory, faster networking, all these advanced capabilities that are important when you're putting a lot of people on a shared box. But then there was that, okay, it doesn't feel very personal if every time I log in, I don't have access to my OneDrive, my SharePoint, Teams didn't exist at the time, but all my documents and settings and such. And to do that in such a way that is supported, took a lot of work, a lot of collaboration internally with the OneDrive team and at the time, the Office productivity team. And we were all looking to solve this problem. And so we said, well, let's look externally as well as internally how we can create a model where a user could just log in and all that data and all their settings are there. And at that time, we looked at a few different technology providers, and Nefas Logic really showed up as a very, very compelling solution. We heard from many customers who were using the product, how successful they've been with it. We did a bunch of bake-offs and testing and validation of that technology, and ultimately that was one that we decided that it would be a great first-party offering for Microsoft. And so I had the great honor of leading that acquisition and brought great folks like yourself and Doug and Randy and just an entire amazing team that many folks are still here on our team after it. It's been about 5-6 years now, isn't it? Yeah, 6 years.
Same, it's 6 years. Yeah, I still remember the moment when that was all in the works, that we met at Mike's Big Night in Orlando, I believe. And it was all secret, but at that time, I still have good fun memories of that. And the rest is kind of history, as like she said, like user profile disks. They were working and they did certain kind of use case, but not like the whole Office 365 stack. So this was like coming in at the right moment. The market was going to cloud, and this service was coming, and COVID eventually happened as well. And then everybody was sent back home, and remoting was more popular than ever before. So all these things happening at the same time was like a great, I still remember back, a great moment for us as a team in the growth curve of the product and the adoption as well. And segueing that into like the demand as well as the need for more SaaS and more simplification, got Windows Virtual Desktop, or I don't need to refer to, got Windows 365 started as the journey of moving that product to a SaaS-based product. And that got us connected as well again. And a new kind of journey and a growth curve. You said like a box, kind of in a box, like a service in a service, and then on top and creating another service with the value for customers. Can you share some more how that started and how that got created?
Well, you were spot on, right? Obviously, even before COVID, we were starting to identify the need to have a solution that even went one step further than what AVD did. AVD, but we characterize that product now as a cloud VDI product. So it retained a lot of the constructs of VDI very intentionally, that, you manage host pools and groups of users, and that you as an admin have total control of the environment. You have every knob and dial. I published a paper on LinkedIn a while back called Pilots versus Passengers, right? So the Azure Virtual Desktop is the tool for pilots. Like if you're familiar with virtualization, you're going to love this thing. We gave you more knobs and dials and flexibility and all access to the entire, reach that Azure provides. But there's a level of complexity involved in making all those decisions. When you have all those choices, you have to be well informed to know which knob and dial to turn. And it's not just turn them once and walk away, right? Your needs evolve over time. New services light up, new Azure SKUs light up, new storage options light up. So it's an ongoing investment to build and retain that expertise in-house to manage that environment. And so we saw with Azure Virtual Desktop, the market grow. Obviously COVID hit, and that rose the awareness of the value of a solution like Azure Virtual Desktop, and the whole industry grew during that time frame. But it didn't grow at the level that you would expect, right? When you really understand the value of virtualization and the great experiences you can provide, there was a barrier of entry, which is the amount of people who actually have VDI expertise. And so internally, we started talking about this within the senior leadership team at Microsoft and decided that we probably should build another solution that was a full SaaS offering. And, it was a very difficult decision for me, but I basically left the AVD team for about 2 years. And some of the people came with me, and we went and built that next generation product. At the time, we were calling it Project Deschutes, famously Project Deschutes. And maybe we should unpack that mystery about, is it the beer? Is it the mountain? Is it the county? Is it the river? It's actually named after the Deschutes River. One of the marketing managers at the time was a very avid fly fisherman, and he loved fishing on the Deschutes River. So truth be told, that we love to wear our Deschutes Brewing sure it's in honor of the early code name for it. It actually came from the river, but kind of getting back to your point, it was about opening up the market a bit, right? We knew from talking with many customers over the years that many of them had tried virtualization and some had deployed it in small amounts within their organization, but it was still a pretty small percentage of the Windows, experience being delivered from the cloud. We saw Azure really expanding. We saw the awareness and value of virtualization expanding, and that led us to creating another, product in that Windows cloud category. And I think, what we're seeing now is explosive growth on both products, right? There is still the demand for a product where I have access to every knob and dial. And then we have obviously a lot of customers now turning to a full SaaS offering without having to bring in all that in-house expertise. And even customers that are using a bit of both. In fact, here at the halls of Microsoft, we have about 60% of the 100,000-ish people that get access to their Microsoft Windows environment are logging in through AVD, and about 40% of those are logging in through Windows 365 and Microsoft DevBox.
That's a great story, and I can completely relate with what you just said. Like, the market and VDI is a certain segment, but with Windows 365, we target actually the physical PC now too, right? And the journey of that and Microsoft coming from the shoots, which I personally still like to call the beer. I like the shoots beer as well. To like now really focus on hardware as well with Windows 365 Link and the future after that as well, which we cannot talk much about, but there's more coming in that area. And that really serves in that SaaS offering of Windows and not per se virtualization, but virtualization as well to modernize. But I think that's the cool journey and then justifies how big the team now is in Microsoft too.
Yeah, and honestly, we're a big team, just the Windows Cloud team in itself, but it's the entire company now that are really leaning into this idea of the N365 security suite, the Office productivity tools, and Windows itself evolving to being running natively in the cloud. And you start to see some of these features rolling out. In fact, you've been responsible for a couple of very exciting ones. Windows 365 Switch, where right inside of Windows, you just swipe and you're in your local environment, you swipe and you're in your corporate environment. Those kind of concepts resonate with users, just so simple, because the idea of this stacked operating systems is kind of complex for an end user. And when you can take this, famously, I think you and I have shown this hand gesture demo to go from what Switch did, is it went from stacked operating systems to basically putting them side by side. And conceptually, users can understand switching between two side-by-side desktops versus I'm moving between two operating systems. File open here and here are not in the same context. And those kind of concepts are really what's limited the growth of traditional VDI, right? You want users to be pulling that technology forward, not resisting it. And traditional VDI had a lot of, usability, items that usually have to coach and get people educated on how things work in a VDI environment. Yeah. With Windows 365 and a cloud PC environment, that is, you don't have to coach or train anybody. They just understand it because it works the way that they're familiar with. And I think that's the big area where, leaning into the opportunities to continue to evolve it. One of the exciting things, I think you start to see the direction of things going. You talked about the Windows 365 Link, and certainly there's been thin client devices in the market for some time, but they've all had a little bit of, whether it's an admin little experience that might be challenging or an end user experience might be a little challenging. With Windows 365 Link, one of the cool things we've done is on the admin side, everything's done in Intune. You don't have to use a third-party tool. Intune is where you do all your Windows 365 management. Very simple settings, and it's just secure by default. If you don't do anything, it is a highly locked down device that you can trust. And then from an end user perspective, even when there's settings they want to make changes on the Link device, they don't have to go to a third-party tool. They go to where they would naturally go, Control Panel. Users don't necessarily know when I'm making a Bluetooth setting, right? Do I need to do that in this operating system or this operating system? They just want to go to where they go on their laptop, on their personal devices, and go to Bluetooth settings. So we've exposed that. We've extended the Control Panel. So when you're in your cloud PC experience with loads on your Link device, when you go to Control Panel, you'll see the settings for the actual Link device in there, along with everything for the host OS as well. Those are kind of things that's just hard to do unless you bring them all into a single Microsoft offering where we can make those level of changes and innovation and really advance that kind of mode forward.
Yeah, I love that. This is really like the example of bringing a familiar Windows experience from the cloud to complexity, especially the Switch experience side by side, but as well the boot to cloud experience. It's just like you can explain a user how that works if they are familiar with Windows versus, hey, explaining, hey, you need to download the client and then all these kind of components on top and seeing like, oh, sometimes doesn't work right. To completely streamline it and just have that being the standard for your end users, right? And with Ling, we take that extra step with like out of the box experiences and engine management and all these things. And the other great example you just call it is the journey of like bringing the settings and cloud and client redirection kind of to a level that you have never seen before coming from Microsoft and other virtualization solutions. So it's really, really, really cool. And the demand and how the service is doing is awesome as well.
Is there is exciting, kind of leaning it out for just a moment, at the Ignite just a few months ago, Satya, spent some pretty ample time during this keynote talking about, our Windows Cloud offerings and shared some statistics that we're very proud of is that Windows 365 is growing at triple digits. AVD has also been on a tear. It's been on a tear for 6 years. So that one is a story that we told often, but to see that level of growth of Windows 365, it really reaffirms what our early vision was, right? And one of the things I'm most proud of is for organizations that have allowed this choice for employees to choose whether to get a new laptop or desktop machine or get a cloud PC. We're seeing more often than not for organizations that have deployed Windows 365, end users are preferring a cloud PC over a physical PC. And ask yourself, those of you that have been in this industry for decades, right? When have you ever seen that where an employee, any random employee would prefer a virtualized environment over a physical environment? Some of us IT folks that really understand the benefit of it and how to work around some of the quirks, we've always preferred that. But to get just some general user who has no real experience with VDI that says, give me a cloud PC because I can just travel with my iPad or my personal device or any device and get access to it anytime, anywhere on any device, that value, certainly resonates with users now. And seeing that kind of demand for this is very, rewarding for us that have been working on this technology for so long and trying to make it more accessible to people that don't really have deep expertise in VDI.
Yeah, I love that. And the expertise part, if that fades away and it becomes all of a sudden easy, it lights up all these scenarios that you didn't know of before, right? Like the flexibility of Windows, like getting the CPU, RAM, in the future, the MPU power as well from the cloud, right? Like all that flexibility of, hey, I just get it if I need it on demand without the complexity. I think that's the next wave of what we will see more and more in terms of Windows users going to Windows 365. So very excited.
Exciting times ahead of us for sure.
So is there anything else you want to share? Like maybe how can people stay in touch with you on LinkedIn or something like that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn at Scott Manchester. And I generally post, upcoming announcements we have around the product. Occasionally I write papers like the Pilots versus Passengers paper that I wrote. But I'd love to hear from folks also. It's a great way to engage. You'll find me at most of the industry events as well. Us and our team, we travel around and pretty active and telling the story about the Windows Cloud value prop.
It's great. Thanks for being here. It's great to have you now on the other side and talk a little bit deeper on your journey and how we have been part of this journey together with the rest of the team. It's great to be in the building as well, where we built this project.
That's right. And it's, could see the traffic picking up out here. It's lunchtime here at Microsoft campus.
So it's a good moment for us to stop as well. Yeah. Hey, thanks, Scott, for
being here. Tristan, it's been a great pleasure working with you.